Hello, everybody. If you have just been watching the festival, you would have just seen me tell a story from my good friend Will's Hour. And now you are here with the Unreeling Storytelling Hour. I want to thank you all for joining us and for coming into this space with us. I first of all want to thank Paul for inviting us to do a portion of this show. A lot of people kept on asking me if this was my idea, and I'm like, uh, I don't know if you guys know me, but no, this was not my idea. Like, this probably would be the hardest thing in the world to do. So, like, hats off to Paul and the Replay Storytelling team. I think they've done an amazing job of setting this up in such a short time. And today I'm just gonna actually hand off to my co-founder Jason. But before we do, I just want to tell you a little bit about Unreeling. If you've just watched the show, you'll maybe understand where this show idea came from. But for most of my life, I just been hiding, repressing all of the things from my life, all the pains from my life, and I started to share the pains from my life maybe a year ago, a little longer, and I started to find that when I talked about them, it felt like a little bit of relief. Like the pain never went away, but it felt like relief. And I thought, how selfish how selfish of it would it be for me to hold on to that and not share it with my community? So I was like, talked to Jason and said, like, this is what I'm thinking. And he was completely on board. And I was lucky to have him come on. So really excited that we can join this show and have some really great storytellers. Before we get into the storytellers, I just want to tell everybody about donating. We have 11 organizations that the different storytelling hours have individually picked. I'm going to let Jason tell you a little bit later about what the one we picked later in the show. But if you can, just go to 24.replaystorytelling.com/donate, and you can go and check out all of the organizations that we are fundraising for, and that would be great. So the things that are going to happen now, I'm going to hand you off to Jason, and he's going to take you through all the storytellers. We're going to have 3 storytellers. We're going to have a little break for Jason to talk about the organization that we're supporting specifically. And then we'll have 2 more storytellers, and I'll send you out with a farewell. Again, thank you all for being here. And because we cannot see the audience, I will actually implore you to, if somebody's story touches you, to not leave it there, because it's really difficult to share these repressed stories. If you can reach out to them on Instagram, Facebook, wherever you can find them, on their blogs, please find them and let them know what it meant to you, because it's very difficult to share these things. Thank you guys again. And next person you'll see is Jason.
Hello. My name is Jason Fulford, and I'm very excited to be a part of this day. And I think it's very important that we start sharing real stories with each other and learning from each other through the stories that we can share that can impact others. I want to share something personal. Eric Garner was my cousin, and recently I just told my first story. And it happened to be with uh, the New Yorker magazine. And I've been getting a lot of feedback and people reaching out to me. But the most important thing about me sharing the story is that it was very therapeutic. And I feel like a lot of the feedback that I have gotten is about people wanting to share more of their stories now. And I think when Devin and I started this, that was the thing that we felt was most important, and that we just needed to kind of push people to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And what a better time than right now to get uncomfortable, because I think our world is uncomfortable, and I think that we have so much that we can learn from each other, and we need to become each other's teachers and healers. And I think that the best thing that storytelling does is it's therapeutic for the person, and they're also sharing a part of themselves that they might have been holding back for a long time. I feel like through sharing one story, I've realized that I have a lot of layers to shed, because I've been moving around in a world that makes me become a different person than I actually am. And that's one thing that I hope that we all understand from this, is that we're making the effort to share these really hard moments in life to make sure somebody else can feel a little more comfortable with sharing their experiences or understanding what a person might be walking around with, even if they're not comfortable sharing. So the first person that's going to share a story with you is Will Clegg, who is a filmmaker, a storyteller, a podcaster, and a sourdough enthusiast who lives in New Jersey. Will is also the founder of a storytelling show here in New York City called Awkward Teenage Years, who actually, they were just on, and it was an amazing show. I was so glad I was able to catch the end of it, where Devin shared a powerful story. Got me a little emotional, actually, but I had to get myself right back together to host. But I'm about to hand it off to Will, and I will be right back with you. Here you go, Will.
Thanks, Jason. This story goes out to the graduating classes of 2020, in case some of you might need to hear this. It's September of 2001, and I'm a senior in college. I'm just starting my senior year. I'm very excited about it. I'm a film studies major at a school in Manhattan. And my family, my friends love to remind me how completely impractical my film studies major is. But I have big dreams. I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be the next Martin Scorsese or Stanley Kubrick or Christopher Nolan, somebody like that. And I'm really excited to go out and get my first job in the film industry at the end of this year. And then the second week of classes is 9/11. And this bright future that I used to envision, all of a sudden, it's very cloudy, right? The whole world has changed in that morning. And now I don't know, like, am I going to be able to find a job at all, let alone in the film industry? The economy has crumbled. Manhattan is like under lockdown. It all is so overwhelming. And then I think, well, I'm at a good school. I'm doing really well here. I'm working really hard. It'll happen for me. It's going to happen for me. All I can do is just continue to work hard and hope for the best here. And so that's what I do for the rest of my senior year. I study as hard as I can. I get the best grades that I can. And when March rolls around, I'm really looking hard for that first job. I call up this guy that I'd done an internship with the year before. He's an independent filmmaker in New York. And then he told me at the end of the internship, look, as soon as you're ready, you call me up. I'm going to do everything I can to get you that first job. All right, don't even worry. So I call him, and the phone number is disconnected. Okay, so I email him, and then I get an auto reply. And it says that he's gone to Southeast Asia on a vision quest, and he doesn't have a return ticket. So I'm a little deflated. And then April comes, and I'm starting to get kind of nervous, but then I catch a little break. A buddy of mine who had graduated the year before, also a film studies major, had a video editing job, a good job, and he was leaving it to go to a better job, and he was recommending me to replace him. This is fantastic. So I go for the interview, and I nail it. Like, I get along great with everybody. I know their systems. It's just a perfect fit. And then 2 weeks later, I call to follow up, and I find out that they've given the job to somebody else who has 5 years of experience. So that's what I'm up against now in this economic climate. So then May comes, and I'm graduating, and I got to make a decision. Like, am I gonna stay in New York? I'm gonna follow my dreams, or I'm gonna move back to North Carolina in with my parents and try to figure out something else, maybe a little more practical. And I choose to follow my dreams. I borrow a little money from my parents. I get a tiny little apartment in the East Village with one of my buddies, and I just start sending out emails and cover letters and resumes, and I get on the one job website that exists in 2002. I have it out everywhere that I possibly can, but all I'm getting back are crickets. In June, I'm really starting to despair. I can't get an interview to save my life. I can't even get a return phone call. And when July begins, I do some math, and I've got like 6 weeks left before I'm going to have to break this lease and move back home. It doesn't feel good at all. I'm not really eating well. I'm not sleeping very much. And then a lifeline. My roommate's dad, he knows a guy at CNBC who's willing to give me an interview for a video editing job. Now, CNBC, if you don't know, it's a business news channel in the United States. I don't really know anything about business. I don't know much about news at all either, but I do know video editing. So, I'm like, yes, I will be there. There's one little hitch. This interview is in Fort Lee, New Jersey. I've never been to New Jersey at this point. I've been living in Manhattan for 4.5 years. I've never crossed the Hudson River to see what's over there. And so I figure out, I got to take a bus to get to Fort Lee, and I go to the Port Authority bus terminal, and I get all the maps, and I figure out which bus is the right bus. And then on the day of, I know I've got the right one, and I hop on that bus, take the ride out there, and I get to Fort Lee, but it was not the right bus. I've screwed it up. I'm like 30 minutes walking away from CNBC, and the interview starts in 15 minutes. So I hustle. And I get there in 25 minutes. I'm only 10 minutes late, which is like not the worst thing in the world, except it's late July and I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, long pants, and now I'm like drenched in my own sweat from hustling. So I show up just like this sopping mess and I'm late. And it's just not a good look. The interview goes okay. I mean, it's obvious that I don't really have any experience in news. They can see that I'm enthusiastic, maybe too enthusiastic after sweating through my clothes. And I go back to the East Village thinking like, all right, maybe there's a chance here. And I follow up again a week later, and then another week later, and I just keep getting sent to voicemail. And I know what that means. So now it's August, and now I'm planning how I'm gonna pack up all my stuff and move back to North Carolina. And at this point, I'm in real bad shape. I don't have any money. I can't go out and do anything fun. So I'm basically just staying up all night watching TV every night. And I'm only able to do that because my roommate pays for the cable bill. And one of those nights I'm up, I don't know how late, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, something. And I've got to pee. So I get up and I go to the bathroom, and after I pee, I get really lightheaded. Not just like normal lightheaded, like you stand up too fast, but like I feel like I'm floating. And I look up and I see myself in the bathroom mirror, and my face has turned this like pale shade of white that I didn't even know really existed. And I think I'm dying. But instead of being afraid, I'm relieved. It's like all this crushing weight that's been on my shoulders is just going to be gone if I just give in and I just die. It's okay. And I do. And everything goes black. I wake up in the bathtub. And it's a tiny New York apartment bathroom, so the bathtub's like right next to the toilet, right? And I wake up and I see the toilet and I see the mirror, and it all comes back to me that I was dying. But I'm not dead. Right? And I hop up and I burst out into the apartment with this adrenaline rushing through me, and there's no one there. My roommate, he's in London with his girlfriend, and I don't know what to do. Like I look at the clock, it's after 3, but I don't know what time I went in there. Could have been a minute, could have been an hour. Like I just have no idea what's just happened to me. So I call my dad. My dad is a physician. I think he'll know what to tell me, but it's so late. I mean, it goes right to voicemail, obviously. And I don't know who else to call or like what else to do. And I sit down on my couch and I start to sob until I fall asleep. Next day, my dad calls me back and he tells me what's happened. It's this thing, it's not that uncommon, but it's fairly rare, and it's called micturition syncope. And sometimes after you urinate, your blood pressure drops. And if you don't do something to alleviate that quickly, like lie down, your body just does it for you. Like you faint, and that's what happened. And probably as soon as I got horizontal, my blood pressure was restored and I woke right back up. I was probably out for like 3 to 5 seconds. It's benign and I'm okay. But I'm not okay. And I know I'm not okay because I was happy to just die. And that's not all right. I know now that I was depressed. I didn't really have the words for it then. A couple days later, I get a call from CNBC. I don't know why. I don't know how. They've decided to give me a shot. And maybe it's because my roommate's dad pulled really hard on those strings for me, or maybe they were really impressed with me. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I reach out and I grab that opportunity with both hands, and it's a 90-minute commute each way. The money is like just barely enough for me to stay in New York, but it's worth it. And Every day that I go to that job, hope grows in my heart a little bit, and I start to dream again. Thanks.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Will. Here I go. Thank you so much, Will, for that story. That was deep, and I definitely understand and could identify with that. Not that specific feeling that you had that moment, but that feeling of kind of not wanting to live anymore and kind of giving up that hope. And I think that, I've been down that hole of depression before. And actually, I would just want to tie it in with something that I do that's extremely therapeutic for me, is running. And it's really changed my life. And it's become so therapeutic that I actually run every day now. And it's also given me hope because, I grew up not too far from a community where people, are living in low income situations. And one thing that I know from that is when things get so low, that's how typically we tend to deal with it. And I just want to thank you, Will, for being so brave to share that story, because we need to know that. And look at where you're at right now, and that little thread of hope that you hung on to has really changed a lot of lives. I've been following your page and what you're doing, and I just want to say, keep it going, because I know I have a lot of awkward teenage stories that I one day will hopefully feel open enough to share. But wow, that was powerful, and thank you again. Our next storyteller is going to be Devin Wilson, who is a storyteller, a model, a social advocate, originally from Los Angeles, and she's now currently living in New York City. And I had the pleasure of meeting Devin when we had our first show, and I can now say we're becoming friends, and I really appreciate everything that she does and what she stands for. And it's a beautiful thing, and you're about to learn a little more about her, and I will let her share her story. How do I can't. There you go.
So I'm sitting in a bar on the Upper East Side drinking a $19 glass of wine. That's more than I usually spend on a bottle, but it's been a really long day. I was at work for nearly 12 hours. It's the peak of summer. And to top it off, at the end of my day, my phone just decided to stop working. So I went to the Apple store, and the geniuses said they didn't have another appointment for 2 hours. So here I am, killing time. I deserve this glass. It doesn't take long before I notice a group of about 4 or 5 guys next to me. It seems like they've been there for a couple hours, probably after work drinks. One of them, 40s, 50s, married, he seems like the ringleader, and another one is in his 30s, and he's just transferred from the Boston office. They're talking about work and sports, and of course they land on women. The younger one declares he's never been with a Black woman before. They start talking about Afropunk in Brooklyn and how there'll be tons of Black women there, and then I realize they're talking about me. Look at her, she's so bored. The nerve, I wasn't bored. I was people watching and eavesdropping. And that's when I hear them start talking about a bet. I don't know what the details are, whether it's just to come talk to me or to get my number, but I do know that the younger one will be coming over sometime soon. I make eye contact with the bartender at the ridiculousness of the volume of this conversation. Even one of the guys comments, he says, "But what if she's heard you?" And the older guy says, "So what if she's heard me? You can just blame it on me. Tell her I'm an asshole." Spoiler alert, he was an asshole. It's then that I come up with my own agenda. If he comes over to talk to me, I am gonna get him to pay for this $19 glass of wine. Lo and behold, here he comes. Game on. He introduces himself as Jeff. I tell him my name. He unironically asks if I come here often. I tell him about my phone and he says, "Oh yeah, I noticed that you weren't on your phone," as if I should be flattered that he noticed me. He talks about work and his family and says how he wants to give all Jeffs a good name. I pretend to be interested when really I'm caught up in my thoughts about how great of a story this is gonna be. He asks me if I want a second glass of wine, and I don't really, but if he wants to up the stakes, sure, why not? We keep chatting back and forth for a little while until I realize the time. I ask the bartender for the check, and as if she was privy to my plan all along, she hands it straight to him and says, "Will you be paying for this, sir?" Hashtag sisterhood. He looks at it and says, "Sure, I'll pay for it." Mission accomplished. I gather up my things and he says, "Well, hold on a minute, let me walk you." And I think, okay, we can talk about this whole bet thing when I get outside. So we're walking and I playfully say, "So tell me about this bet." And he says, "What? No," complete denial. And I'm, "Well, I heard you. Come on, like, just tell me about it." And he still is just complete denial. We keep walking and all of a sudden he moves to kiss me. And I'm caught off guard because one, it's forceful. And two, I had laid this boundary with myself earlier. It was just gonna be about the wine. It was just gonna be a good story. Why didn't my voice say no? I feel betrayed by my voice and I get caught up in my thoughts. Why didn't we say no? What's going on? I don't want this. We get to the Apple store and as he comes toward me again, my voice still can't find the word no. Only this time he pins me up against the wall and sticks his hand down the back of my pants. I realize that he's drunker than I thought he was and that I might be in over my head. I remember thinking, I wonder if the people in the bright Apple store can see what's happening down here in the darkness. He keeps pushing me, asking for my number, wanting me to come home with him. And then my thoughts grasp onto this one idea. If you can tell me my name, you can have my phone number. He's so drunk, he can't tell me my name. And so I convince him to write it down on a piece of paper. And I say, as soon as they fix my phone, I'll call you and I'll come over. I have no intention of calling him. I have no intention of coming over. I just want him to let me leave. And after much persistence, he finally lets me go. I walk into the Apple store and breathe a sigh of relief. I head up the stairs quickly because by now I'm late for my appointment and my thoughts are reeling when all of a sudden I feel a hand grab my arm and it's Jeff. He's followed me in to the Apple store. Again, I have no words. We get up to the second floor and the genius calls, "Devin?" And I'm nonsensically worried because now he knows my name. How else am I gonna get out of this? He puts his arm around me like he has some sort of ownership. And as we approach, the genius says, "Oh my God, how cute you two are." And I think, no, not cute. This could be the beginning of an episode of Law and Order SVU. I hand her my phone, and within 2 minutes, it's working. Turns out it just needed a hard restart as opposed to, I don't know, whatever soft restart I had tried before on my own. Pissed, I am immediately pissed. I am pissed at myself, I am pissed at Jeff, but most of all, I am pissed at the Apple store. If they had just done some sort of quick diagnostic 3 hours ago, this entire night could have been avoided. I walk out of the store with Jeff in tow, and my new goal is to get him to confess to this bet. This night will not have been for nothing. I need some sort of vindication. So we sit on a bench, and I say, "Tell me about this bet. What were the parameters? What were the stakes? How much money did you put down? Did I earn my part?" He puts his head down and sort of shakes from side to side and says, no, as if he wants me to feel shame for him. After the 50th no, I realize he's too drunk for me to get anything out of him, and he probably won't even remember this tomorrow. He's still pressing me, trying to get me to come home with him, and I say, "You know what? No. It's late and I have to be up early, And in order not to aggravate him, I say, but I'll call you tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow. It wasn't the assertive no that I thought I would always have in this situation, but it was a no. After much persuasion, he finally lets me go. He walks his way to the Upper East Side, and I walk mine west, home to Harlem. I had originally planned to walk the width of the park home to the train, but at some point during the night, I had subconsciously given myself permission to splurge on a cab. So I walk across the street, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Jeff, and he's turned direction, and he is following me again. The light changes, and I walk briskly across the street, and as if the universe can feel my panic, a cab comes around the corner. I throw up my arms so fast, and it stops. I hop in the cab, and I slam the door, and I give the cabbie my cross streets, and we're off. I look back through the window, and I see Jeff stop in his tracks, put his hands casually in his pockets, and turn back the other direction. This story happened last summer. I've told about 3 people, one of whom is my therapist, because I still hold so much shame about what I did to bring this on. If only I hadn't gotten him to pay for my wine, if only I had found the word no sooner, if only the so-called geniuses at Apple had tested my fucking phone. It wasn't until I was recounting this story last week for this very show that I had the thought, I think I was sexually assaulted. At the beginning of that night, I thought I would end up with a good story to tell. Turns out, it's a healing story to tell.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you so much. Wow. That was a lot. And I'm so glad that you were brave enough to share that with us. And I know that that story will help someone. And the most important, I know that that story will help you. You know, and that's what we're here for. We are all here to heal and let out what could be holding us back from moving on. And I just want to say that I've been in situations myself. I can't compare it to anything like that. But I've been in situations where I've made myself believe that I was in the wrong when I know I wasn't. Even something as simple as being pulled over by a police officer, I've had to figure out how to blame myself. So thank you for sharing that with us. And wow, I'm a little emotional off of that, but we're gonna keep this going. Seth Abrams is our next storyteller. He is a writer, an actor, and New York City walking tour guide who lives in New Jersey. He was also the co-curator at the now defunct Museum of the American Gangster and served as a historical consultant, the remake of The Great Gatsby. So Seth is going to share his story right now.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
You only can see part of your face.
Hold on, I'm doing this. Okay. Hello, we're here. Sorry about that. We're good to go? So, yeah, living in the Midtown neighborhood of Tudor City would enable me, secluded neighborhood that is, can you see me? To pass by during a run or going to work or anything, the oldest hospital in the country, Bellevue Hospital. During my runs, during walking, whatever it may be, I'd always pass by and stand in awe at the medically splendid fortress, the fence that separates it from First Avenue. And I would stand there thinking about about when it was called Eastman Pavilion, which was named after Edward Monk Eastman. And they named it after him because he was a turn-of-the-century gangster. He sent so many people to Bellevue that they unofficially named it after him. He's like your typical old-time gangster who had a love for animals more than he did for people. I don't care if you're a Goyle or a kid, you hit me kids, you hit me boys, and there's gonna be trouble. Like that type of typical when you think of an old-time gangster. So I used to love walking by those gates and I would think about him all the time, and New York that no longer exists. On January 3rd, 2012, I stepped out to go for a run. And when I went out to run, I returned. I had to stop as quickly as I started. I felt out of breath. I felt like something was wrong that I never felt before, more than a normal. Mind you, I was in marathon running shape. I was a fit 34-year-old, pretty lean. So being a product of a neurotic Jewish mother, I said, what are you doing? Get yourself checked out. So I do my best to head over to a walk-in clinic. Upon going there, tell the attending doctor what's going on, symptoms. He does echocardiogram. It all comes up negative. Sends me home on my way. I'm walking home. Mind you, only have 7 blocks to go north and about 4 to head east. So not that long. I get about 3 blocks in and 2 across. And I feel like a pain I've never felt before, like literally hit like in between my shoulder blades, the top of my back. Somehow I muster up enough energy to hail a cab. In the cab, I passed out, even though it was a less than 5-minute ride. I roll up to my building, Tudor City, which is right by the UN. The doorman comes out, he greets me, he said, Seth, you don't look so hot. What's going on? Would you party too hard on New Year's? Because this was one of those days where New Year's Day was a Monday, so you get everything off on Tuesday. Or New Year's was Sunday, so you get the Monday off. It was one of those weird days. So upon pleading with him, doorman Freddie makes the executive decision. I don't look so hot. I've never seen me like this. He calls an ambulance. Get the ambulance. Where did they bring me? Good old Eastman Pavilion, where I always walk by, Bellevue. I get out there. They rush me right to the emergency room. That thing I felt, my back like I was hit, it was an aortic aneurysm, or specifically called aortic aneurysm, or dissection rather. Literally, the aortic portion of my heart split in half. That's what it felt like being hit with a baseball bat. It was my heart, part of my heart breaking. They rushed me into surgery, and hour surgery. I'm healing. I'm doing good to go. Everything in the hospital, family seeing me. Literally, and this is only a result of the aneurysm, would never have happened before. Literally, the night before discharge, stroke on the right side stroke of the brain affecting the left side of my body. As my family sits vigil, the attending neurologist has the audacity to tell my family he, meaning me, will never walk, never use his left hand. He will never swallow. My father takes one look at him and says, while my son's admitted here, don't even think about walking past his room. You don't count us out. Count him out. I like to think in that moment, that was, because I've never seen my father, let me backtrack, normally a very practical, even-keeled guy. Never seen that side of him before. I'd like to think that that was the spirit of Monk Eastman and his cronies stepping in, because I've always trusted in them, that they were there. So, and he said, your job now is to get better, which accomplished. besides a nonstop speech, occupational, and physical therapy, was accomplished by doing wheelchair and eventually cane laps around the horse-drawn ambulance that's still parked in Bellevue's lobby. I would go there. That was my go-to. Every night, on top of that, every night, maybe it was a cornucopia of drugs. It was going through my bloodstream all the time, between the heart meds and the stroke meds and all that. But at night, I could swear that I would see out my window horse-drawn ambulance similar to the one that's parked in the lobby, bringing Monk's victims to the Eastman Pavilion. I'd hear and see it. And then when anyone that came to visit me, we do laps, and I do the cane and the wheelchair laps around the ambulance because that was my extra therapy. Years have gone by. I've maintained a relationship. It's 8.5 years now. I've maintained a relationship with the staff of Bellevue. I've gone back to visit the nurses and the therapists. I've even worked with some patients, hoping to summon Monk and his cronies by ambulance again. But much to my effort, no avail. I feel like served a purpose because he believed in them and their history, that he did his job to protect me there. Next time, I'll have to fill in about my experience at Hackensack Hospital. FYI, I forgot to do a disclaimer that I'm sure you picked up on this, that my speech is still a little altered because of the stroke. And last summer I had a bacteria infection in the brain that, as a result of seizures, that's affected my short-term memory. So if I'm a little jumbled, that's why. This is my first thing back after that. It's just been nonstop. But we'll save Hackensack for a whole other time. Thank you.
Amazing. And I just want to say that your persistence to get better and to be an example of somebody that has had a really tough time with something that you were not able to control was just so inspiring to me. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart for being willing to share that with us. And to let us know that sometimes, you know, the odds can be against us, but we can get through anything. You just showed me you're a living example of somebody that can get through anything. And right now, I think that hope is so important to everybody because of the times that we're in. And that just gave me a little more hope and light that we could accomplish anything if we really put our mind, our hearts, and our beliefs into it. And again, Seth, thank you so much for being brave enough to share that story. And I'm actually looking forward to hearing the next story that you're going to share. So we're 3 stories in now. So this is my time where I'm going to take a few minutes to just encourage people to go and donate now for the Garner Way Foundation. And, you know, Devin had asked me if there was anything that might resonate with me personal, that we could try to collect some donations for this event. And the first thing that came into my mind was the Garner Way Foundation because, as I mentioned earlier, Eric Garner was my cousin. And it just so happens that actually the piece that I did with the New Yorker came out on Friday. That was just a coincidence. We did not have that planned. And again, you know, you could go to thenewyorker.com if you're interested in checking out my story, because I'm not able to share that right now because I'm just the host. But it has a lot to do with what happens after something so tragic occurs, and more about like the effect it has on the family, which I'm a member of his family, and I've really had to live, you know, through not knowing sometimes what I'm going to see on social media. And this recent event with George Floyd really was triggering. I was not prepared for it. Which I don't think any of us are prepared for it. But when your family member has already been a victim of that, and you know your world has not worked towards making it a better place, your country has not worked towards making it a better place. 6 years later, an officer can feel that comfortable, to do that. It just automatically you're reliving that. And I just want to say that my Aunt Gwen, Eric's mom, is one of the strongest people that I've ever met in my life. And it's a privilege that I'm able to have that example in my family. Because even now, she's out really trying to make sure that her voice is still heard. And that's why I really want to encourage people to donate to the Garnerway Foundation so we could keep this movement going. Because obviously we have a lot of work to do. The work is just not done. I actually believe we're just getting started right now. And, I'll quote Nipsey Hussle, the marathon continues. And I'm a runner, so that really resonates with me. And the same way I train for running, right now I am training myself for this fight that I understand will be long. But I know that if we pull together, we can do it together. And I am looking forward to us being the people that create new history. I think a lot of history has been stolen from us and rewritten. And I think it's now time, with all the access to, Google and social media and all these things, let's rewrite history the right way. Let's share stories that are real and let's learn from them. And right now what we're facing, especially in America as a country, is we have to figure out a way where every single person is going to be treated equally, especially by the police departments around the country. Enough is enough. And if you're able to, please donate. It would mean a lot to me personally, so we could keep the momentum going, keep things going. And now I'm going to get into our next storyteller, who is Valarie Walker. She also spoke at our first storytelling event in February. She's a native New Yorker who was raised to believe that everyone has a story to tell. And she taught me that day. So it really resonated with me, and I thank her for that. And she's been telling stories since she could talk. And she says she'll probably keep going till she no longer can. And I just want to say, I'm all for it. Keep sharing those stories, Valarie. I will always be willing to listen. And let everybody hear your story now.
On May 29th of this year, a friend reached out to me to check in. My friend is a white male and he's a pastor. I figured it was important to mention those things because I am not a white male or a member of his flock. He was checking in the aftermath of the brutal murder of George Floyd, and he expressed, even as he was concerned for me, he had no words to say, to share. He just wanted me to know that he was there. And I thought it was so odd that a man of the cloth wouldn't have words, because you have the entire Bible. But what that showed me is that whatever's going on here is not in that good book. And so in that moment of realizing how low he was, I was enveloped in love for him. And that feeling of love was in stark contrast to the fits of rage that had been taking up my time and my life for the last few days. Fits of rage that I thought would consume me in their fiery depths and end me. Dreams of retaliation and revenge and violence that I'm horrified to know that I can manufacture. But in that moment, when I felt love for him, I realized something. Even with the image of a white cop with his knee on the neck of a black man, so comfortable, hands in his pockets, riding up and down like a buoy in the ocean, even with the images of cops attacking peaceful protesters, even with all those images, I realized that rage was not going to be my way. Because in that moment when I felt such love for my friend, I realized for me, love had to be the only thing. Physics shows us that if you want to stop a force that is working against you or oppressing you, the only way to do that is to meet it with equal or greater force. Well, these events have shown me that there's no way for me to hate on that level. I just don't have it within me. But one thing that has always been true about me from birth is that I've always had a lot of love to give. Anybody who knows me will be like, oh, she said love? Yeah, well, that makes sense. Love is kind of my superpower. So for me, that was the answer. And I shared that with my friend. I said, tell your flock to love. I was raised with the wrong conception that my love was something that needed to be earned, that somehow you had to go through a series of challenges and tests in order to be considered worthy of having my love. But when you think about it, who is unworthy of love? If Hitler had had more of it, maybe he would have been all right. So love was going to be my way. So I decided I'm going to have a march. Because one thing I recognize across my life and my little superpower of love is that love freely given begets more love. So if I could have a march and it was just going to be me, then by God, my love was going to be enough. But I was hoping that I could have 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 of my friends match with me, and then we can magnify our love, and that would multiply with your love, and that would combine with their love, and then it would be our love, and we could focus it on the problem. So I put up a post on Facebook. I said, oh, I want to have a little march. And my best friend from 3rd grade's older sister said she would march with me. And I was struck. I was like, well, damn, now I got to have a march. Because if Christine is going to march with me, then we got to do this. And then I decided I don't know enough, and I'm smart enough to know when I'm stupid. But there's a lot of information out there. So I contacted my comrades. I've been raised up in a protest community. So I was part of ACT UP. I was part of the Lesbian Avengers. I was part of Black AIDS Mobilization. And so I called my old cronies, one that lives in Paris now. We had to figure out our Zoom call in between our sleep zones. And I asked a lot of questions, and I made copious lists, and I've been checking them bad boys off. But don't get it twisted. This is a message of love. And I told you, love freely given begets more love. And child, that's just what happened. People first people were contacting me. How can I do this? What can I do? Put up an event thing. I want to be there. I will march with me. I can't be there. I don't live in your city. I want to give you some money. Money makes me uncomfortable, so I don't like to talk about it. But I had a lot of requests, so I said, I'm going to put up a GoFundMe. I put it up on Facebook at 9 a.m. in the morning and set the goal for $500. By 10:30, it was at $375. By 12 o'clock, it was at $500. By the time I worked my way through my work Zoom meetings, it was to $1,000. When I woke up the next day, it was $1,600, and I got scared. I thought, oh, I don't want people to think I'm trying to run away with their money. So I closed the GoFundMe. Then I got yelled at about that because people were like, I didn't get a chance to give. Come on, you closed it after 24 hours. I was like, who knew? So love freely given begets more love. We have I needed marshals. I put out a call for marshals. Over 70 women have stepped up and said they're going to marshal. A vendor who makes masks has decided to donate masks for all 70 of the women, and the masks say Black Lives Matter. And what a powerful picture that is going to be. Everybody from my cousins to chicks that I know talk bad about me at lunch in high school are going to be there. We're going to march from across the Brooklyn Bridge. We're going to pass the African burial ground and have a moment of silence. We're going to have this march on Juneteenth because I couldn't think of a more fitting day to celebrate the end of slavery by declaring the end to tyranny. So love, freely given, begets more love. And on June 19th, we are going to love this down. Thank you.
Wow. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Valarie. It is really a pleasure to know you. And she is right on the money. It's all about love. And I've actually been posting about that a lot. That's the way we're going to fight this, with love. And that's what these stories are all about. You know, some might be hard to deal with, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to spread love. Actually, I got it on my shirt here, if you can see, spread love. Because that's all I want to do, you know? It's the Brooklyn way, but I want it to be the world way, you know? That's just a saying. That's the only reason I said that. But yes, let's spread more love. We've already spread enough hate. We've been taught to hate. So let's reteach ourselves to end that hate with all the love that we can give. And that's it. We will get where we need to get as long as we do that. So Valarie, thank you for the reminder and the inspiring story you just gave us. And your passion is love. And thank you. Our next and final speaker, I'm gonna call her a closer because she closed out our first show, you know, and she's an amazing person. Adrienne Lotson, who is an anthropologist, jurist, author, and performance artist from, don't know where she lives, so I believe she's in New York, right? She'll tell you, but she travels the world. I know that. And that's one thing that really stood out to me when I met her and she told the story. She travels all over and it's big. It's a big part of her. That's why I couldn't remember exactly where she lives, but I know it's in New York. And when she travels the world, she's using her gifts for the written and spoken word to lend a voice to the silenced and visibility to those often overlooked. So just take a minute to really embrace that. And Adrienne, share your story.
Harlem, USA, baby. And I wept. Sitting in my apartment in Kansas City, watching Nelson Mandela tour New York and being at Yankee Stadium, my heart was sore. More than anything, I wanted to be there. And I tried to use every connection I had to get myself from Kansas City to New York to be there in that moment. It had not worked out. And I wept. And I thought about what connected me so strongly to Nelson Mandela. I thought about when I began my legal education in Berkeley, California, and I was a part of a movement, an anti-apartheid movement on the campus. The dean of the law school calls me in one day. He says, "Ms. Lotson, you are here to become a lawyer, not a rabble rouser. I understand there's going to be a protest on Sprout Plaza today and you'll be sleeping out in the streets. Well, I'll have you know, the FBI has called us. They told us that they're going to be videotaping everything and they will not protect you if anything happens. I suggest you and your cronies don't show up. I suggest you go back to class and learn the law and get a good job. Because if you insist on doing this, you'll never practice law in your life. There won't be a single state that will admit you to the practice of law if you get arrested fighting for apartheid." Every one of us has to make a decision in our life. So what side of history we want to stand on. And on that day, I decided to stand on the side of justice. So I walked out of the dean's office, I walked down the Sprout Plaza, and I laid out my sleeping bag. And myself and lots of other students laid out there all night long. And in the morning, there was no violence, we went back to class and continued our work of activism, protest work. Before the end of the academic year, Berkeley had divested from South Africa, and my hope sprang eternal for racial justice. And it was going to be a better world. But year after year after year, apartheid still existed, and Nelson Mandela still sat in a jail cell. And with every year that passed, from the time that our activism got these universities to divest, to nothing happening, my hope diminished and diminished and diminished. And I wondered if there would ever be racial justice in this world. 6 years later, Nelson Mandela walked through the gates of that jail, free, holding Winnie Mandela's hand, and I wept. And my heart soared, and my hope sprang anew. And I knew in that moment that I had to be in his presence, that I had to let him know the impact he had had on my life. And here I am, sitting in my apartment in Kansas City, watching him in my hometown in New York, and I'm nowhere near there. And I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but somehow I'm going to meet this man. Several years later, I'm living in Atlanta. I've left my career as a sports attorney, and I'm now in seminary. And I'm working on a project with the president of the seminary on faith in media. One day we receive a phone call. Now President Mandela is about to retire. This is his last year. And he wanted to fly to DC and meet with all the Black faith leaders to thank them for the work the churches had done to help bring down the apartheid system. He had made arrangements with the White House to meet all of these folks and the Clinton administration at the White House. And I just knew here was my opportunity. I'm working for one of the invitees, the president of the seminary. There is a private plane that has been chartered. Bernice King, Martin Luther King's daughter, is on the plane. I know I'm going to carry his bags. I'm going to DC. I'm going to meet Nelson Mandela. I'm going to be able to tell him thank you for all that you did to fight against an unjust system, for all that you did to stay the course and not let them break your back. And the plane took off without me because I wasn't anybody special. I wasn't a church leader. I didn't get to go. And I wept. Several months later, I was invited to be part of a delegation of students going to Zimbabwe. It was in conjunction with the World Council of Churches, which meets every 6 to 13 years, depending on what they feel like. It's not a set period of time. And the leaders of all the churches of the world come together. And we were going on a cultural tour of Zimbabwe connected with the World Council of Churches. So we go to Zimbabwe and find out that Bishop Tutu will be speaking at the end of the week to thank the world leaders, the church leaders, for the work that they did with bringing down apartheid. So we're very, very excited. Now, none of us have badges, but you could have, as a general public, you could have access to the food court area, the common grounds, and we would spend some time there. But eventually we had to get on our bus and go on our cultural tour. And we got to see Mos Yatunya, which the colonizers named Vic Falls. We got to see the Great Wall of Zimbabwe, which would blow your mind. We got to engage with the Shona people and see the famous Shona sculptures. And it was just an incredible experience. And eventually we make our way back to Harare. And in Harare, we head over to the World Council of Churches food court area. And a Black gentleman sees me, and he just wasn't used to seeing a whole lot of Black people in the area. And he walks over to me and he's asked me who I am and what I'm doing there. And I explain it to him, and he leans in and he whispers and he says, "Do you know who's speaking tomorrow?" And I said, "Yes, Bishop Tutu." And he says, "No, President Mandela's coming, but no one knows. It's a surprise." And I said, "What? Mandela is going to be here?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, I don't have a badge. Dang it, I really..." And he says, "Listen, I run logistics. Show up at this door." And he told me the door to come to tomorrow, and I will get you in. And I thought, my dream is coming true. My prayer is coming true. I'm going to meet Mandela. I'm going to be in his presence. So I grab my roommate. We go the next day. A soldier with a huge machine gun is standing at the door. And I said to him, "Okay, I need to meet this gentleman who's going to let me in." He goes, "No, you don't have a badge. You don't get to come in." I said, No. This guy, I think his name is Joel, he's meeting me here. He's letting me in." He goes, "No, you don't get to come in." I said, "Well, now, if I had a badge, where would I go?" And he says, but you don't have a badge. I said, but if I had a badge, where would I go? He goes, you go over there. I said, thank you. I grab my roommate, we run to that door. I say to the soldier with a machine gun, I gotta come in here. He says, no, you don't have a badge. I said, I know I don't have a badge, but I'm supposed to meet Joel. Joel is supposed to let me in. And would I know that this is the door for people with badges if someone hadn't told me, who had the authority to tell me this? And he goes, okay, come in. So he lets me in. So I run into the arena and I hear this whisper in my head, go to the front. So I say to my roommate, girl, we going to the front. So she's like, whatever. So we're zigzagging around, trying to get around people. We get to the front, and I'm trying to make sure nobody notices I don't have a badge on. And just as we get to the front, the South African choir arrives, and they introduce the South African choir, and they come and dance in the toy toy. And they're singing a song, and they're dancing the toy toy, and they're coming up on stage, and who's behind them? President Nelson Mandela. And instead of taking his seat, and it's marked out, he goes up on the stage with them, dancing the toy toy and singing. And he approaches the microphone, and everyone is looking around like, what's going on? He's supposed to wait. 2 or 3 other people are supposed to speak before he speaks. But he just starts speaking. And he says, I don't know why I'm here. And I'm going, for me, for me. He goes, but I knew I had to come and thank the faith leaders because we could not have done this without you. And then I heard that whisper say, go to the back. And I think, go to the back? I just got to the front. I heard the whisper say, go to the back. So I say to my roommate, we're headed to the back. So I run. She's like, what are you talking about? Run to the back. And as I get to the back, Mandela says, thank you, walks off the stage and starts to leave. At this point, everybody realizes he is leaving the auditorium, and they all run to the back to try and get close to him. There's a rope and a line of soldiers with machine guns. And on the other side of the rope is a very tall woman, and then there's me. And I tap the woman on her shoulder, and I say, excuse me, would you take a picture of President Mandela when he goes by? And she said, no, I will not. She turns her shoulder, she says, but you can. And she lets me stand in front of her. And as I'm standing there, the soldier looks at me, and then he moves to the side. So now it's just me against the rope. And here comes President Mandela. And I say, President Mandela! And he turns and he looks at me, and I snap my camera. And he says, hey. And I stick my hand out through the rope, and he walks over and he takes my hand and he shakes my hand. And I said, thank you. And he said, thank you. And I feel his hand, the hand of a boxer. It's soft and it's pudgy, but it's so firm. And I'll never, ever forget what his hand felt like. And I look at my hand, and he walks away, and I hear that whisper, I wanted you to know there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. And I wept.
Thank you so much, Adrian. And wow, you made me feel that. You know, I felt like I was just there with you. And thank you for sharing that experience with us. That is just amazing. And, you know, your persistence in that story too is amazing. As amazing as you actually getting to meet him. I know we're going a little bit over time, so I just want to say thank you to all our storytellers. You are all amazing, and being this brave to share your story with everyone is just something that I'm so proud of all of you. And I really want to just take this time to say thank you to Devin for bringing me in to start, you know, really kind of being vulnerable and sharing stories and being more open to really let people know exactly who I am. And it's already taken me to places that I didn't know I can go. And I mean that as far as within myself, not anything material, not anything that has to do with anyone else, but you have made me get closer with myself. And I want to thank you for being my partner in this. And I'm gonna let you take us out, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Same goes back to you, man. I think finding you and meeting with you and having this was exactly what I needed. And if you like these stories, I know I love them. I got lost a couple times. I was supposed to spotlight and I got caught in the story. But if you love these stories, you're gonna wanna stick around for the next show. It's called Raw Storytelling. And if you can guess by the name, they're gonna get just as raw there. So please Don't think this is the end of the show. Stay on and jump to the next show. They're going to have some great stories. Thank you, guys.